Well, here we go. It all comes down to this on this Super Sunday. As I said, it started with the Test, went on to the T20s, and now the grand finale of the entire tour hinges on this one game. Can it become 3-2? Because it is all beautifully set up, or rather 2-1, beautifully set up at 1-1. Once again, I'm thinking there were such long games. We've already played 4. We've only played 2. This is ODI number 3 from Pune, and it is all up to both teams. Quick update for the toss in case you do need it. Yeah, Virat Kohli can't do that right. He just simply cannot get that thing right. He had a smirk on his face at the toss, but 2 out of 11 tosses is what he's won. Joss Buttler had a huge smile on his face. Whether or not that will translate to a victory or not, we'll have to wait 100 overs to find out, or maybe close to 100 overs. That's the news. England won the toss and India will bat first. In the company of Joy Bhattacharjya and Michael Vaughan. Firstly, gentlemen, in advance, wishing you for between today and tomorrow for various parts of India a very happy Holi. It's going to be a very colourful game, hopefully, to live up to that, Joy.
Yeah, I can see by your shirt that it is a colourful. You've gone with the theme immediately. That shirt. I only want to tell you something. Michael Vaughan is joining us from England. It's 7 in the morning from him. Okay, he's just about to have 1 cup of coffee. Does he need to look at this shirt? Gautam, are you being kind to him? Are you being decent to him? This is important for me.
Michael, I can tell you that I've got my coffee as well, but we start playing Holi nice and early in the morning. This year, things are different. It's a little more private, a little more subdued, a little more muted. But if you can't play out there in the colours, I've had colours thrown on my shirt to keep the spirit up. But England will enjoy winning that toss again.
Yeah, I like your shirt, Gautam. I always like your attire. Yeah, I mean, 9 out of 11 tosses going the way of England. You'd want to win one of the 3 series by doing that. You go back to the Test series, they lost 3-1. The T20s lost 3-2. Now this is the chance to win a one-day series. They've not won a one-day series in India for such a long period of time. They've left, the likes of Joe Root, Jofra Archer out of the squad. So it will be a fantastic achievement. And it always helps in India if you win the toss. It does help you just get that 5 to 10% advantage that you need as an opposing team. So the luck of the coin has gone England's way, and they're going to rely on that powerful batting lineup once again to try and chase whatever India get.
2 clues, Joy, at the toss. One was, of course, Virat Kohli was, in whatever way he admitted a little bit of despondency, he would have liked to have won the toss and fielded first, unlike in the previous ODI. And secondly, he said one of the areas we need to sort out is about 25 or 30 runs. And I think it's something we talked about as well. So whether that translates into intent or not, we'll find out. But team news is what we expected. Kuldeep Yadav is not playing, but it's not wrist spinner for wrist spinner. It's T. Natarajan coming in, interestingly, Joy, for Kuldeep Yadav.
Yeah, which also means that unless really that's the only change out here, and that means that unless we have a situation where Hardik Pandya decides to bowl today, we are once again going with 5 bowlers. Whether we like it or not, if one of these guys gets hammered, unless Hardik Pandya bowls, there is no option. So that's one thing that we were talking about giving a captain option. So 2 things could have happened. Either Virat could have told Hardik, what, this is the decider. Roll your arm over. I'm not going to ask you to bowl 10, but give me 5 or 6 in case somebody really gets hammered. Or they just said that, what, we'll go with the plan. It's not about the bowlers, it's about the batting, and that's what we want to solve. And obviously, clearly, he wants to solve the batting. I love the way what he said today. He said, I have completely lost control over the toss. He's like, it's not saying I'm having a run of bad luck. I have lost control. I can't do it. So, only his RCB must be hoping that this luck, finishes with international cricket and doesn't come with to them. But yeah, I think he also said, which was most importantly what Michael was talking about all this while, they cannot afford to rest in that period. What they were doing, they can't afford to coast. Against an England side, you can't coast at any point in your innings. That's the point.
Well, we'll find out very shortly with India batting first. But I think let's go straight to that, because I think what we've decided, and the team has put together these numbers, Michael, and I think it pretty much tells the story of the entire series. And if you can tell the story through numbers as opposed to just use stats, it's very, very telling. This is the innings progression, and have a look at the 6s. Not because we are those enthusiastic young kids in the stands who only wants every ball to go for 6. But, Michael, as you pointed out, at the right time, if you can hit those 6s, look at England's 6s in overs 1 to 40.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference in the two teams' approach. You look at India; they've hit 6 sixes from overs 1 to 40. All right, in the last 10 overs, they explode. They've hit 16 sixes, which tells you that they can do it. When they decide to try and hit sixes, obviously they have the skill and the power to do so. England have hit 30 sixes from overs 1 to 40. And you look in the first 20 overs, England have hit 15 sixes. There's not one six that has been hit by India in the first 20 overs of the first two ODIs. You're not telling me that Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, Virat Kohli can't suddenly, as soon as the spinner comes on in that first 20, can hit a couple of sixes, particularly on a wicket like we've seen, on a ground that we've seen in the first two. Both captains have said that this pitch looks even better. So if it is better than the second game, India clearly have got to be a bit more aggressive early. You know, the likes of Virat Kohli, you look at the way that he played the other day, very nicely, got a lovely 50. But for Virat not to be striking over 100 on that kind of wicket, and for Moeen Ali to get over his 10 overs bowled for 47, that's really like the kind of matchup that we keep hearing in this era of the game. India have to sort that matchup up. As soon as the spinners come on, they can't allow them to bowl on the ground and a pitch like we've seen in the first two.
Oh, we'll keep an eye on Moeen Ali's figures, Joy. But just in case for all of you out there thinking, while we made this comparison, India 16 sixes in the last 10. So does that mean England can't hit sixes in the last 10? Let's remind you, England hardly played the last 10 in the first two games. In game one, they were bowled out before they could reach that phase. And in game two, they knocked off the runs before they could reach that phase. So that stat is slightly skewed towards the end pretty much. But what it does show is those first 30, Joy, very, very vital.
Oh, absolutely. And see, when you're hitting in the first 30, you're hitting sixes. Sixes are intent. You know, a lot of time fours, you get a situation where you're placing it through the field. Okay. 6 means that I have committed to lofting the ball. Okay. Or I've committed to a shot. So I think that is the one thing that he's talking about. You know, spinners, like on fast bowlers, you're not going to be able to say, I'm going to hit sixes unless somebody bowls it short and you have a chance to sort of, hook it or pull it. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to be able to hit so many sixes in the front foot. Of course, these batsmen can hit sixes almost anywhere. But if a spinner comes on and you're not trying to loft it, that's really, really surprising. And I think England have clearly gone down that mantra, and we're saying that it's 1-1. But again, as you know, Michael has been saying very often, and we like to think that India is not just playing a one-day international against England right now. They are trying to create a template for a top-class ODI side that sets its own standard. And by that standard, India would look at itself and say, we can improve on this, and we definitely have the firepower to improve on it. So let's go and do something about it. I think that's the more important point. It's not just about winning this particular ODI.
Yeah, it's the series might be on the line, but I think Joy is right. We have to look at this particular format as a way not only of spilling onto other formats, but in terms of finding that perfect template. But it'll be an interesting pursuit for sixes, Michael Vaughan, with the bounce of Reece Topley and the pace of Mark Wood now added to the England lineup. Let's just remind you what's the one change. Tom Curran out, Mark Wood in, as you predicted, Michael.
Yeah, I thought that would happen. Tom Curran's not really had the best time. He got a couple of wickets, so he'll be happy with just getting a couple. But, you know, Mark Wood's been outstanding. You know, his extra pace. You know, he has swung the ball away from the right-handers early. And I also thought they were going to give Reece Topley at least 2 of these games because they're trying to find out about Reece Topley. And he was very good, particularly of any of the bowlers at the back end of the innings where England have really struggled. He looks like he's going to be a good angle change, good variations, good slow balls, gets a bit of bounce with those slow balls as well, those kind of out the back of the hand, slower deliveries. So it doesn't surprise me. It's a shame for someone like Matt Parkinson, who's been on tour with England pretty much all winter, and he's not played one game. And I know they want to try and get him some games just in case Adil Rashid has an injury down the line. But, you know, when you're in a final, which today is, it's very, very difficult to throw someone in who hasn't played, and Adil Rashid will be crashing down the door saying, "Come on, I want to play in this game." It's a great one-off final, and you want to be involved in those kind of situations. So I can completely understand the team that England have picked.
But in terms of India's personnel, you're going to focus on the 11, but it's important, Joy, to sort of look at the story, sort of try and get into the mind of the one person who's sitting out, was expected to be such a big asset, used to be part of this lethal duo called Kulcha or Chaku, whichever way you look at it. But Joy, 18 ODIs played since the 2019 World Cup. Kuldeep has taken part in 7 of them. More importantly, in 2020 or from Jan 2020 till now, virtually no first-class cricket and not enough cricket to actually be able to sink his teeth into to try and get that arm rolling properly.
Absolutely. I mean, I was just looking at it from September. I think he's played about 9 games since 22nd September of 2020, and he's just not got enough games under his belt. He's not been playing Vijay Hazare as well because he's been with the Indian team. So in a funny way, the Indian team is trying to help him out of this slump by keeping him with the boys. But another way, that's denying him, because of this bubble, it's denying him under normal circumstances. Kuldeep would have gone back and played those games under normal circumstances. But because of this bubble, what's happening is that it's very difficult to release players to go and play domestic cricket while international cricket is on, because they can't walk back into that bubble. So in effect, what's happening is, when I'm picking you and saying, you know what, I want you to be a part of my India plans and therefore you're with us, it also means that while you're not getting matches, your friends are getting match practice playing list A cricket, Vijay Hazare, they're playing Mushtaq Ali. You don't have that opportunity. And so it cuts both ways. And I really feel for him, because as Michael will tell you, there is nothing to replace match practice, and there's nothing to replace getting wickets in matches. You know, just going out there, rolling your arm, getting a couple of wickets. It may be one-day cricket, it may be list A cricket, but he will just, that satisfaction, that bowling in those conditions would have given him a huge, huge confidence boost, and that's just not happened for him.
Interestingly, listening to all the buzz around Kuldeep Yadav, there's been a suggestion almost. We talk about bowlers bowling in tandem, be it spinners or quick bowlers. There's also been a suggestion of a wicket-keeper-bowler combination. And certainly MS Dhoni's played a part in almost encouraging his spinners and being part of that spin bowling, the entire wicket-taking culture, if I may use that word, Michael. Is it fair to say that with Dhoni's departure, they're almost missing him?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that. I mean, you look at Kuldeep Yadav, to have only bowled 115 overs in a year and a year and a half. It's just not enough for a young spin bowler to get the rhythm to make a few changes. Clearly, when MS Dhoni was behind the stumps, he had a captain and a think tank that could help him out. But I think more so it was the fact that Kuldeep Yadav had not been seen by many of these teams. So he probably surprised many of these teams. And having MS Dhoni behind the stumps probably intimidated the batsman anyway, because it's MS Dhoni only a yard and a half away from where you're striking the ball. But I think it was more the fact that Kuldeep Yadav was a new player on the scene. He's a young leg spinner, and it always takes a bit of time for batters to get used to the deliveries. What's he got? What's his googly looking like? How many googlies has he got? What variations? And for me, looking at him, I don't think he's got better. And he's probably just stayed at the same level. Now, in international cricket, IPL cricket, if you're not bringing something different to your game, particularly as a young leg spinner, a change in pace, a new subtle variation change in terms of an angle change, come round the wicket. I don't see that a lot from Kuldeep Yadav. I think he's been found out a bit. I think his paces have stayed the same paces as what he started with. It's very, very slow. It looks to me like he's got a slow leg spinner and a slow googly. Now, these players these days have got all the technology to watch that delivery over and over again, not just out in the middle, but they'll just watch front-on replays on the video screen before they bat, so they can see absolutely everything in the cues that Kuldeep Yadav delivers before he bowls that ball. So I think, not every batsman will pick every delivery, but I think a lot of the England players in particular are picking Kuldeep Yadav. And that makes it so much easier to strike. If you're trying to strike the ball into the stands, you generally need to know which way it's spinning, because then you can just hit it off a yard and a half length difference. You just go with the way that the ball's turning. Even if it's a googly right on, you just go over the offside. And I think that's what's happened. I think Kuldeep Yadav has been found out a bit. I don't think he's brought something new to his game. Now is his challenge is, can he go away into the IPL and bring something just slightly different? I mean, they all say, can he bowl it a bit quicker? I think he will have to bring that quicker delivery on a more consistent basis, because if he keeps floating him up there, well, he's just going to get hit out the attack. So it's now that crossroad. You get a crossroad in your career when you get that opportunity to kind of turn right, turn left, go straight on. he's got that moment now. How's he going to be able to go in all directions by changing just a little bit of his game?
Michael Vaughan has brought up the technical side of it, be it how he should bowl and whatever might happen behind the stumps, Joy. But the other aspect of any player, whether at the crossroads or not, is the mental aspect. He is a confidence bowler. We know that. You've seen him since 2014. He's only played 14 out of 28 games in the last 2 seasons of the IPL. How do you address that mind of Kuldeep Yadav?
I genuinely, I think that is also an essential problem. See, even if he has to learn a new delivery, he has to see what's happening with him right now is that, yes, Dhoni was important to him, but he's also holding on to the memory of Dhoni because that's the memory of old times and good times, and you tend to do that and said, that's what's changed. So that's what's causing the problem. And quite often it's not that, but it's just, you'd like to think that that's what's changed about what's happened. Kuldeep was always a very confident young man, even when he was not playing. And before he came, he spent a year bowling in the Mumbai Indians nets. That's in 2013. He was not part of the Mumbai Indian squads, but he bowled hour after hour in the nets. And when you're bowling the Mumbai Indian nets, you're bowling to class batsmen all the time. And he was not scared. And I think now he's just looking at himself and he's doubting himself. And I think it's interesting because just before the World Cup, the IPL was held just before the World Cup, if you remember, in 2019. And what happened was that Rohit Sharma, whenever there was a Mumbai Indians versus KKR match, Rohit Sharma would go up to him after the match and sort of put his arm around him and says, hope everything's okay, this is good. He was almost sort of saying that this guy's a vital part of the World Cup. I don't want him to lose his confidence. But B, that's Rohit also acknowledging that Kuldeep needs that kind of encouragement in him. Now I just hope he's getting it.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost see it even from a Rishabh Pant, who's relatively new. Since we talked about Dhoni to the setter, you could see Joy every single ball. He was talking to him, saying, "That's the right one. Come on, Kulli." And it's almost not that Rishabh Pant talks less, but it was a little 20% extra for Kuldeep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's it. Kuldeep needs to, but what Michael said is very cold hard facts that Kuldeep needs, say, for example, another delivery. And it has happened. You've seen so often it happens. Most good bowlers go back and get one more ball in their armory. I mean, Ashwin has discovered new balls as late as 2017, 2018, 2019. When he's an experienced international cricketer, he's still going back there. The analogy I have is something called, there's a wonderful story called Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And there's a story about the Red Queen. Okay. And the concept of the Red Queen is exactly what international cricket is about. You run, everyone is running just to stay in the same place because everyone is running. So if you stay in the same place, you're going to be far behind. So in the Red Queen's race, everyone is running just to stay in the same place. In international cricket, if you're not running, if you're not changing, if you're not adapting, somebody else is running faster than you.
Well, Alice in Wonderland reminded me of going down a rabbit hole. And it's taken me back a few years, Michael, to a time when a match was completed in near darkness in Cuttack. In 84-85, Paul Downton was at the crease for England. The rules were different. If a match gets stopped at any point in time, whichever team were ahead comparatively at that stage goes on to win. And I remember that. It was before my broadcasting days yet. I was in the commentary box helping the commentary team with a torch in hand. It was that dark to try and figure out who was ahead. At the other end of the ground, Mrs. Fowler was doing the same with Team England. And the moment England nudged 1 run ahead, and they batted at least 2.5 overs in almost near darkness, they couldn't see, the fielders couldn't see, but only the batting side had the right to appeal. And the moment they went 1 run ahead, flash of the torch from Mrs. Fowler, and suddenly Downton goes up to the umpire and says, "Can't see a thing, mate," and they win the game by a run. The reason also I bring that up, Michael, is that was the last time England won a series in India. 4-1.
That's a good story. I didn't realize you were so old, Gautam.
I wasn't a professional, Michael. I was just a young kid accompanying my dad in the commentary box.
Oh, love it. That reminds me, back in the days of county cricket, that's exactly what used to happen when I first started county cricket. That you'd be playing a one-day game, and as soon as you got ahead of the rate, I don't know what was it, Duckworth Lewis back then? I can't remember what it was, but as soon as you got ahead and they had the scoreboard had the numbers, someone would be changing the numbers and you had to wait for the number. As soon as you knew you were ahead, your eyes were like, "Oh, I can't see anymore." You just hit the most glorious cover drive, and all of a sudden you realise you can't see anymore. It was great times. Yeah, that's why I said earlier this is a big game because England would want that series win. To win in India in any format is very, very difficult. You look at these numbers on the screen. India generally over the last few years, going back to 2006, have hammered England really in one-day cricket. 213 was close, 3-2. But you have to say this England white ball team is a lot better than the teams that would have played in those series. One or two players missing, but that's why this is a big series win. If England can win without Owen Morgan, Sam Billings has been obviously put on the sidelines with an injury. No Joe Root, no Jofra Archer. I know India have got no Jadeja, no Bumrah, but to beat India with a team that's not got your mainstay, your substance in there, it'd be a great achievement for England.
Yeah, as you could have a look at those series, they weren't even necessarily going to deciders, let alone what kind of a margin you lose by. But India, on the other hand, like in T20 internationals, seem to just pull out something extra in a decider. It's almost as if Virat Kohli needs that push, needs that alarm bell. And if you have a look at this, the only loss you can look at in there happens to be England, one of the two teams who have inflicted a loss, the other being Australia in 2019. But otherwise, generally, more often than not, Joy, it's a victory and a decider.
Yeah, I think India has been very, very good at deciders. And the reason I bring it up was we were talking about the other day that Saurav Ganguly, once, we were talking about India in finals and deciders. And one of the top teams, which was regarded as one of the great teams, the Fab Five and all these great players, VVS Lakshman and Yuvraj along with them. And actually, if you look at that, this current Indian team's record in deciders is much, much better. This is a team that goes for the kill, and that's something that, call it the IPL, call it even the Virat effect, because Virat has this thing about he goes harder at deciders. He wants to win, I think. And that urge to win is very, very clear. Somewhere, Virat and Ravi Shastri have done something to Indian cricket, and that particular part of it is something that we don't have a great legacy of, and you have to give them credit for that. They've been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, if you take a parallel from that run progression, Michael, they seem to leave their best part for last, as in they hit all the sixes between 40 and 50. They would like to have started a little better, but going by the T20I series, over 200 in that decider batting first. Here again, Virat not wanting to, but asked to bat first. They'd pretty much need to look at 375, won't they?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to these first 50 overs because I do think India will come out and be aggressive. I still think that the top two need to give themselves just a little bit of a chance to get in. It might swing for 3 or 4 overs, Mark Wood, Sam Curran. So you don't want to come out, being too aggressive that you're 2 or 3 down early. Still set your foundation for those first 10. But from 10 overs, when the bowling changes are going to happen, and then all of a sudden the spinners will be brought on around 15, 16, that's when India have to go. That's when they really have to force the issue. And then by hitting the spinners, it then forces Josh Buttler to bring the seamers back on that little bit earlier. You go back to that second game, Josh basically could just bowl his spinners right through because there was no real force and no pressure being put on them. India can't allow England and Josh Buttler just to throw the ball to Moeen Ali, Adil Rashid from around 50 and say, right, you get your 20 overs out the way, and then we'll turn our attention to the seamers once again. We just always remind everyone from 1 to 40 is the time where you get the least fielders outside of the circle. So you got more of an opportunity to get it over the top. And then in the last 10, another fielder goes out onto the boundary. So there's one more boundary, which is protected really. But in this era, players of the quality that we see shouldn't get concerned by boundary riders either. With these bats and the physical strength of these players and the fearless way that they can swing a cricket bat, if there's a boundary fielder right on the edge, so what? Just whack it over the top of him, put it 25 rows back into the stands. That's what the really good white ball players think in this era. Just think sixes and trying to clear the rope.
Have you been talking to Graham Swan, Michael? You know exactly which row it's going to go into, is it? That's what he's been doing on commentary over here. Every time it goes into the stands, it's either 15 or 12 or 19. It's become the standing joke now. Which row, Graham? Swanee, come on.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, the stands and the grounds in India now are too big. But you'd like to have said it back in the era, whack it out of the ground, but they're just too big now. You know, you'd be hitting balls into orbit if you did that. Just the first row will do. Just over the top of the field is fine. You know, it only has to go over the top of that fielder on the boundary. It's still the same, isn't it? You still only get 6. But I must admit, on the eye, you know, when you see it travel back 30, 40 rows into the stands, it's a pleasure.
Yes, indeed. We've seen a few of the big ones, haven't we, Joy? But for the final time in this series, as India attempt to climb yet another mountain or a little hill that's just behind the ground in Pune, what hill do we have to climb as far as your questions are concerned?
I've got it. I've got a nice one today. It's Holi. It's a Holi theme. And I know, Gautam, you know the answer to this exactly. You know this answer. Which Indian cricketer plays his final test during Holi? That means the festival of Holi was on during this test match and was also man of the match in that game.
Yes.
Gautam has some interesting memories of that, yes.
I do. And I'm not going to say anything right now. I think in our post-show, whenever we wrap up this series, look out for a really fun story associated with that game. And it was memorable for a variety of reasons, and a well-deserved man of the match is all I can say. No more hints. Score prediction, gentlemen. And Michael, we're obviously looking at a big one. You have to go away from 3 to 8.
Yeah, I have to. I'm going to stay with an 8. I'm going to go 368.
Oh, ouch. Okay, I'm coming down a little bit lower. I know India will try and go hard. I'm going to go for my 348. Let's go with the 8s. 368, 348. Come on, Joy, get it in 8 at the end.
You haven't got me anywhere. I have to go with 328. I have nowhere to go.
All right, fair enough.
Can't go higher, so I might as well go 328.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to throw in just a little bit of a googly as we end the show over here, because in case for whatever reason we don't find ourselves in that range, and I think we will, give us a figure for Moeen Ali's final 10 overs. Come on, Michael.
I don't think he'll get his 10 overs. I think he'll get hit and he won't bowl his 10. I think he'll bowl 7, and I think he'll go for 58.
Oh, that's a brave one. Yeah, he'll have to go for that if India get to that 358. So 368, sorry. Joy?
Again, Michael's taken the good ones, but let me just come in. I'll say 6 and 51.
All right. I think for some reason, I'll say that whatever reason, they'll try to hit him. He'll get a wicket. He'll end up bowling his 10 overs, but he will go for a bit. 1 for 69 in 10 overs. Let's have some fun and see. Lots and lots of predictions. Final day. Throw it all out there. It's Holi. Have an happy Holi. If you can't throw colors on someone, throw numbers at them. That's the mantra these days. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joy. We'll see all of you at the 15th over Cricbuzz Combox. And hopefully India will have put on quite a few runs and set a platform by then. Cricbuzz Live. We'll see you soon.